We read a book called Mother Heal Myself, an intergenerational healing journey between two worlds. And I'm Christy.
And I'm Jocelyn.
I'm Deb.
And then on the next slide here, we just have the references of the book. The book is no longer in print, so we initially had some trouble finding copies of the book to even read, but we borrowed some and got some from libraries and things like that. Highly, highly recommend it if
You can find somebody.
if you can find it, because it was a really, really amazing book, and we all really enjoyed it a lot. So, the main characters in the book were JoEllen Kerner. She's the author, a Mennonite from South Dakota. She's also a nurse, and more importantly, a mother. And the second main character is her daughter, Christy, who's seriously ill throughout the book with kidney stones after 2 pregnancies. And then the third main character is Winigi Waki. He's a keeper of the Lakota Sioux traditions and a friend of JoEllen. So JoEllen, as a nurse, was an administrative nurse, and she worked with him on trying to improve the health of the Native American population in South Dakota. So they became really good friends through work, and then later on through the illness of Christy. JoEllen also in the beginning of the book talks about her mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother and their healing journeys or problems with illnesses all surrounding different pregnancies. So that kind of led into the book, but these are the 3 main characters. So summary really revolves around Christy's pain and her healing or her health crisis after these pregnancies. So with JoEllen being a nurse, they obviously started with Western medicine and just found it really inadequate at managing her pain. At one point, the pain got so bad that Christy was crying in bed and asked her mother if she would help her die if it didn't improve within, it was like a week,
2 days.
or 2 days. She said,
so
will you help me die if it doesn't improve? And JoEllen talks about her heart just breaking, because can you imagine your daughter asking you that? And she knew that she had to tell her, yes, I will help you do this if we can't improve your pain. So
She prefaced it with, before she asked him for help to die, she said, do you love me?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really love me?
mm-hmm.
And then she asked the question, which makes it even harder not
Yeah.
to cry through that part of
Yeah.
the book, because it's, when she comes to that realization that she will help her if it doesn't go away.
And
It's very
also,
powerful.
yeah, she knew, if she went to the hospital, she would die there. So she felt like this was her only option, and the mother felt that too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but her illness is kidney stones. And for a young female, it's really uncommon. And so even with the Western medicine, there were a few doctors who just flat out didn't even do tests on her and said, that's not what your issue is. Even though it was, they didn't even look into it, because they said there's no way, because you don't fit the mold of the typical person who would have kidney stones.
Told her to drink lots of water. That was
Yeah.
But that was one other prescription.
Yeah.
Go home and drink a lot of water.
And they put stents in to help pass the kidney stones, which in turn just was more painful, but was the only way to help her manage the pain, even though the stents were so painful in and of themselves. She was unable to care for her 2 children, so there was a baby and then like a 2-year-old. The baby just was colicky throughout the entire ordeal, and so they had to get the grandmother to come in and help, and the husband and everyone, the entire family was just completely tapped due to this illness. So they also used Native American medicine, and it seemed like every point in the book that Christy was really at her wit's end and the pain was so hard, the phone would ring and it was Winigi Waki, and he would say to JoEllen, your daughter is sick. And JoEllen would just start crying on the phone and say, yes, I know, she's so sick, we can't help her. And he said, do you want me to come and help? And so he, being her friend just through work, ended up helping and bringing them to various healing ceremonies, some sweat lodge, a sweat lodge vision quest, a Sundance, and the Feast of Wapilla. And to prepare for those, JoEllen had to do prayer ties, which was taking like little pieces of fabric and tying them
With tobacco.
with, yeah.
and you could like wave it over like sage smoke or something.
Yeah, and she had to do like hundreds of these, and so she spent
There's a
hours,
couple.
right, creating these
Number,
prayer
it was like a
ties.
specific
Right.
number.
Yeah, to prepare for these ceremonies and the spirit place as well. And being a Mennonite, then the extended family didn't really understand this cultural aspect of it, and kind of didn't really agree with it. But Joellen's motherly, instinct said, "This is what I'm doing for my daughter because this is the only thing that's going to help." So.
So we're going to talk about some of the healing discoveries, and Christy mentioned that the 5 kidney stones that Christy had, Christy was a blind, the 5 kidney stones that Christy in the book had were, she had 5 kidney stones during and after the birth of her second child, and they represented 5 generations of ancestors plagued by death around childbirth. The 5 generations are Christy herself and her 2 difficult pregnancies, her mother Joellen, the author of the book, who suffered 2 miscarriages before she was able to give birth to her twins. And another interesting thing about Joellen, when she had her twins, her husband was in Vietnam, so he was not around. So there are also some themes of kind of being abandoned around childbirth in this book as well. Joellen herself was born premature. When she was being born, the doctors asked her husband, they said, you have to choose one. You have to choose your wife or your daughter. Somebody's going to die in this situation. And the husband chose his wife, and Joellen survived. So that's really important in the book, is that she had it in her to be the one to break this intergenerational difficulty in this illness. So the next generation would have been Florence, Joellen's mother. And her own mother had died after her birth. And then Pauline, the next generation above, she was 5 when her mother died in childbirth. And the great-great-grandmother, Katerina, she died on their trip. They were immigrating to America from Russia, and she died on the way over to America on the ship. And Pauline remembers that and has memories of that. So the 5 stones hold the memory of ancestors. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from the book because I couldn't say it any better. So this is just Winnie-Hiwaki, the explanation of the story. So he's talking to Christy and Joellen, and he says, "Christy and Joe, you 2 come from a wonderful family, a family with a heritage of many good things. However, it is also a culture that has an oppressive history for the women who live within it. The women of your family lineage who died so because life was simply too hard for them, and so they chose to leave it. The 2 of you agreed before coming to this earth plane to live through this time as a way to heal that deep cultural wound. When you heal, the healing will be extended to all the women of your lineage. Christy, you have manifested 5 stones. In our way, a stone is a keeper of the memory. These stones represent the 5 generations of women who have been plagued by death around childbirth. The stones hold their memory. Your earth body is the only thing you uniquely possess, a gift from the Creator. It is given when you are born, and you leave it when you die. When people are oppressed, they either turn outward or inward. The women in your lineage turned the oppression inward on themselves, and their bodies were destroyed. The key to healing this intergenerational issue is the notion of forgiveness. Joe, if you want Christy to heal, you must forgive all male oppression in this world." And when he says that to her, she thinks like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I have to forgive all male oppression in the world to save my daughter," and she really thinks about it. Winnie-Hiwaki can tell by the look on her face